All right, hello again, YouTube followers and friends. This is Ron, and most of you know I work with Mobile Fix Automotive. I'm the owner of the company. Today I'm not really doing a video through the company. I'm working on a 33-foot Thor Tahoe toy hauler that the electric jacks, or landing gear as they're called, stripped out. This is my personal vehicle. And I just figured I was going to shoot a video to help people out. I couldn't really find a lot of information on this. So basically what I've got is over a period of months, first the crossover tube that runs my electric jacks, and to give you an idea what system I have the standard system, which is it's two separate jacks, but there's only one motor powering both jacks, and the primary electric motor is on the driver's side, and there is a drive shaft, a square drive shaft that goes from the driver's side to the passenger side that drives the screw drive on the right side jack. Basically what happened with this is a couple of months ago the drive shaft actually busted at the electric motor on the other side, and it broke in a position where it couldn't be fixed. And so for the last couple of trips I've been using just the driver's side jack, and the passenger side jack's been dead. I've been using a bottle jack. Well, this past weekend we went out and did another trip, and I've been lifting the trailer up and down with just the one jack, and it overloaded and stripped the threads out, so now both of them are completely dead. So I'm going to be retrofitting this out with a new electric jack system from Bulldog that I found online. And it's going to have independent electric motors on it this time, so the control panel is going to have to be replaced. And I just figured that I'm going to let you guys watch me go through this. Now, for those of you that have watched a lot of my videos, you guys know that when I shoot these, I've done them over and over again, and I'm very comfortable being able to explain to you guys on camera step by step what I'm doing. Because I've never done this before, and this particular kit has some, let's just say, idiosyncrasies to it, we're just going to walk through it together. I'm going to try to make it as quick as I can for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you the kit that I bought, and we're going to go through what's in it and what's not in it, because this video is not only going to be on the install, I'm also going to review this kit from a mechanic standpoint and an owner standpoint. So here's the box everything came in. Let's see if my lovely assistant can get a shot of this. It's part number 500161. It's made by a company called Bulldog, and this box weighed 80 pounds when it got dropped off by the UPS driver. I ordered this particular kit from eBay, and it came from a vendor in Las Vegas, Nevada. I paid I think about $550 for this with shipping. I saw them online anywhere between $530 and almost $900 for the exact same part numbers. And I don't know if they change depending on who is the vendor, but I'm going to show you what came in this. So this was the box I opened up, and what I got was the two main jacks, okay? And if you take the little cardboard pieces off, this is the electric motors. Each one has a wire on it, okay? And the other things that came in the kit was this white box, which has, hey, they actually listed as landing gear. I thought landing gear only came on aircraft, but apparently these it's not the electronic jacks. So this is the control panel, which is actually pretty nice. It would have been nicer if they'd have given us a little bit longer leads on the electrical wiring, just because this has to go through a panel that's about 3 inches thick. So that much of it's going to get used up just going through the wall, and so I'm going to have to work with basically about 8 inches of wire. I've already kind of used some brain cells, and right now I've got a single switch, so when it goes retract, both legs come up at the same time, or at least they used to. And when I go extend, both legs go down at the same time. Now each leg is going to be independent. The one thing that I did notice about this control panel that I'm not sure about yet, and hey, we're in this together, I'm anticipating that these two rocker switches should have been closer together, because I think it would have made it easier when it's underneath to be able to just reach over with one finger and push both rockers. It's going to be kind of hard to do that, so you're going to have to use two hands or find a way to get your thumb, or if it would have just been side by side, you could have just pressed both of them at the same time. Not really sure why they decided to do that, but when I go to do the reviews, we'll figure out if that's going to be an issue. The other thing I noticed is that in this kit, it did not come with extra wire. So my coach is 8.5 feet wide wall to wall. My jacks are inboard about, I'm gonna say, a little bit less than a foot on each side, so I'm about a 7-foot span. Nah, I don't think that's gonna make it. So I have a feeling there's gonna be a trip to the hardware store to pick up electrical connectors and wiring to finish this kit off. The other thing I noticed is that the control panel does not have the bolts to bolt it into the wall. So maybe they're inside the next box that we open up, but so far I haven't seen that. Okay, so this is the hardware box, and it comes with emergency bolt, which we won't need unless the system fails. And it looks like it also came with the instructions, which I originally did not think it came with. I ended up downloading them online and then printing them out. And it's basically the exact same thing I have on paper, so we'll just file those under we know what we're doing. Alright, so in this box it comes with the automatic pin for one side and the automatic pin for the other side. It comes with both of the landing gear feet, and it comes with the brackets for holding the landing gear onto the frame. Now, in a perfect world, and what I'm hoping for is that these pieces right here that are in my trailer that are already welded are going to be in the exact same location, and all I'm going to have to do is unbolt and bolt the new ones in. But with my luck, there's probably a difference in the spread, and they're not going to be exactly the same. So I'm going to leave this hardware in the box for now. So basically, as far as the kit being complete, there's no hardware to be able to bolt the control panel to the trailer, and there's obviously not going to be enough wiring to wire from the driver's side to the passenger side, so I will have to deal with that. So excuse me for 1 second while I go to the hardware store and buy some wires. I had already anticipated, because obviously I cut the box open before you guys got to see the video, I anticipated needing wiring and connectors. One of the other things that comes in the kit is this cool little bolt. This is an override bolt. So in the event that your battery goes dead or something happens where you have no electricity, this allows you to move the jacks independently. And I will show you right now something that I already see being a problem. These jacks come configured in 2 different stages, or you can configure them in 2 different stages. You can have it set up, if you look at this sheet right here, they have a configuration for high-speed drive or high-torque drive. Now, it's my understanding that to have high speed, you have to have lower gearing. So you can either have the high torque drive, which is, in my opinion, going to be able to lift way more weight with more ease. In other words, for those of you that know how to drive a stick shift, first gear is always easier to start out in than third gear, right? So with that theory in mind, I'm going to have mine set up for high torque drive, which is the configuration that it came in. If you notice right here, there's 2 separate spots. Okay, to be able to switch it from one to the other, you simply knock this roll pin out right here, pull this washer off, and you literally just pick the unit up and move it, and then put this one here, and then that'll be your high speed drive. Now, my trailer is weighing in over 14,000 pounds when I have my sand rail in the back of it. I don't really think the speed, as much as I would like to have extra speed, is going to be the smartest thing for me, especially since I've already destroyed one set of landing gear. But here's what I want to show you, because I already see this being an issue. This is an override bolt. So what happens is when the electricity to this stops, and you need to be able to get your landing gear up or down, you're supposed to be able to put this in the hole that's not being used and then turn it, and it will basically rotate your gear up and down manually without having to do the electrical. If you look at the gap between the top of this bolt and the electric motor, I don't even have it turned all the way sideways. You're going to have a super thin socket with an extension and a ratchet above it. So keep that in mind, because the only other way to do it's going to be with a hand wrench, and I can tell you right now, that is going to wear you out. So at least they gave it to us. Like I said, the configuration it came in for this one is actually on the high torque, and I'm leaving it there. So I'm going to walk you through what I'm going to be working on over here. So inside this hole, you can see this is the bottom of my landing gear right now. So you pull the auto lock pin and it drops down. This is the main housing that it's sitting in, which is what's on that table that I just showed you. And as you can see, there's a bolt here, and then down here there's another bolt right here. I'm going to be removing both of those bolts. I'm also going to be removing the bolt hardware for this is the drive shaft I told you that goes across to the other side. Now on this side it works. See how easy that is to turn? Okay, that's not the problem. The problem is it busted the shaft on the other side. So if we come over to the driver's side of this rig, you're going to see a whole lot of spaghetti for electric wiring, because that's how it was done. This is the broken side of the drive shaft, and this is the shaft right here where my finger is that it broke off of, where the bolt's supposed to go through. And this is the electric drive. Now, real quick, these electric drive motors are known for the plastic gears stripping out in them on these big rigs. Mine stripped out about 2 years ago, and I replaced it with one that's all metal gears. That's the one that broke. So the all metal gear ones are good, but they're not bulletproof. They're gonna have a problem. So what I need to do right now is I need to remove both of these jacks and get prepped. The very first thing I had to do, and I want my lovely assistant that's recording to watch this. Safety is important, guys. I've hurt myself a lot in my life. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. These things are super heavy and they can hurt people. My best friend got hurt with one of these falling on him, and I don't ever want to see that happen to somebody again. You guys see these safety stands? Okay, those are 10-ton safety stands. You notice that my landing gear is not on the ground. Something has to be holding this rig up, okay? So what I did was I put 2 bottle jacks underneath this trailer yesterday to get my truck out from underneath it. I jacked it up, put the safety stands on it, set it back down, and then you notice I put my tripod, which is, not everybody has those, but they're basically for stabilization, but it's just a backup for safety. So make sure that you have safety stands underneath these things. I don't want to see anybody hurt. Okay, the next thing that needs to be done is we're dealing with a 12-volt system. Even though the coach has house current in it at 120 volts, the actual landing gear runs on the DC current, which is 12 volts. If we start cutting wires or moving stuff while the battery's connected, we're going to do what we like to call letting the smoke out, and we don't want to do that. So on my particular rig, and I'm not going to show you where it's at because I don't like anybody to know where I hide my stuff, but I have a electrical disconnect switch that disconnects the ground wire between my batteries and my frame. It kills all 12-volt power to everything. It is the same as disconnecting the negatives off of all the batteries. So if you do not have a battery disconnect switch at this time, find your battery packs and remove the negative cables off of every one of them. If you're not sure which ones are negative and positive, just remove them all. Just be careful, because if positive and negative touch when there's an active battery, you're going to let the smoke out, or you're going to see a big spark. So at that point, I'm going to get set up for removing these, and we're going to carry on. Okay, so in this step right here, what I'm doing is I'm removing my old landing gear. And real quick, I just wanted to show you, these are the brackets that came in the kit, the brand new kit. If you don't have landing gear in your trailer at all, or if whatever you're installing them on doesn't have them, then at least they give you the brackets. But just to show you what it is, this bracket right here is this bracket right here. Okay, and what I'm hoping for, since they're welded to the trailer really good, is I'm hoping that they are the spacing on these pieces right here, which are the stops. See right there where my finger is? Those are welded to the actual outer jack frame. And if they're in the same spot, one of them's to prevent it from going up past this side, and the other one's to prevent it from coming down past the other side. Although I don't think you ever really have a problem with them coming down. It would be more just the sheer weight holding up the trailer. The other thing is that we're going to be taking this apart. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to yank this cheap cotter pin, throw it in the trash can, and then that just comes off. Wow, that pin's actually bent. My trailer heavy, isn't it? So this piece right here, which is the adjustable slider, when you're using your landing gear, obviously you pull your pin and it goes, you know, close to the ground, and then you can, it keeps you from having to wait an hour for your electrics to hit the ground. It also makes it so you don't have to carry a bunch of wood with you. These are inside of the new jacks. If you look up inside the hole, they're in there. I gotta go get them. So we'll figure out how to get those down in a bit. Right now what I want to do is I want to get this landing gear out. That's a 3/8, which I don't have on me. So the first step I'm going to do is I already pulled the bolt on my drive shaft and slid it off. Once again, guys, be patient. It's going to be a long video. Like I said, I'm trying to do this with you guys for the first time. So I want to see how they managed to get this in here. Oh yeah, okay, cool. So, oh, I did have an extension. I wondered how they dealt with having different lengths of trailers. So this piece is going to be discarded, but I think I'm going to keep it because that looks like something I can use on another project. So now that the crossover drive shaft is gone, I need to unbolt the stand and pull it out. But because I have aftermarket locking pins, automatic pins, I got to take that off first. So I'll be right back. I got to go get a socket. Okay, so now that I've got the right socket for this, I'm going to take this off. These actually were really nice. I put these on the trailer about 5 years ago, and they sure beat doing the mechanical pins. Okay, so that's not going to come all the way out, and unless I park this over a manhole cover or find a way to jack the front end up, that's not coming out. So here's how I think I'm going to cheat this design. I am going to run this up in here and put a zip tie through the hole, because I need this to fit through the hole in the bottom of my trailer, and that was sticking out, the pin was sticking out too far from it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two bolts off that hold this jack in place, and I'm going to actually just loosen the top one up and actually take the bottom one out first, because it's the hardest one to get to. Normally I use air tools, but this is confined space right here. So all right, so there's the bottom bolt. Those aren't even grade 8, those are just regular bumper bolts. All right, so now I'm going to get this one off. And now the jack should be free to come out, maybe. Okay, so now for the competency test. For For those of you wondering why I didn't push the bottom jack pad in all the way, it's bent, it doesn't go in all the way. So I'm gonna have to figure out how this is gonna work. I think the easiest thing to do is to screw this thing all the way up, because it wasn't all the way up in the first place. So I am going to put a screw through this and just turn it until it comes up. Wow, the threads on this are tight. No wonder the shaft busted. Wow. That's why my landing gear failed, because the threads are all jacked up. I can barely turn this. Man, I gotta give that little electric motor credit. If it was able to turn both of these, I'm gonna run and grab a screwdriver so I can have more leverage. I will return in a second. Okay, so this isn't coming out the way it's supposed to, and this is not the way I want this to go. So there's one. You can see how much leg is down outside of the main housing. I tried to put a screwdriver in the screw drive and turn it, and the threads are just completely locked up. So these things have seen their better days. Now, what I need to know is whether or not these pieces are welded in the same place. And they sure look like they are. Right here is what I'm looking for. See the notch that's welded on the new ones, and the notch that's notched into the old ones. Okay, so now I'm gonna bang my head on the trailer. Yeah, that's out of the way. You only have to bang your head 3 times, and then you start thinking clearly. So now I got to figure out which one of these is going to be my left leg and which one is going to be my right leg. The Bulldog is going to face forward, and I want my pin, since these are welded on, they're not bolted on like my other one, I don't have a choice. I want my pin to be sticking out of the side, not the front. So this is going to be my left leg. And the other thing I'm worried about, I don't know if any of you guys have seen it. Oh, hey, the leg fell out. Cool beans. Okay, so I'm going to zip tie this leg so it doesn't move. Right there. So the other thing that I've been a little concerned about on this, guys and gals, my daughter's slowly becoming a mechanic. I have no problem with women working on stuff. She's actually really good at what she's doing. I'm very proud of her. So I have to keep remembering it's not just us guys doing this. All right, the other thing that I've been worried about is if you notice on the top of the old jack, the electric motor wasn't sticking up off of it. It was off to the side. So I have to make sure that there's enough clearance. Can you see this right here? I have to make sure that there's enough clearance for this electric motor when this thing's inside of there. So I doubt this is going to go back through the bottom, because that hole ain't that big, but then again, stranger things have happened. Nope. Alright, so if it doesn't go through this way, guys, we're going to have a swell time. Okay, so I got it sitting on a shelf inside. Now I got to figure out how to get it to stand up. Okay. be. It is a direct fit replacement. They said that online. Sorry for being out of breath. I think I'm getting old. So I'm gonna put one of my set screws back in here, right here, guys. Come on over so you can see what I'm doing close up. So I got the assembly in here, and it looks like there's enough room on the roof. And just so this doesn't fall out, I put the set screw in. So what is holding it from sliding out the bottom, let's see if I can get my light in here for you, is that block that we were talking about that's welded onto the side of it is sitting on top of the bottom bracket, and it's on bottom of the top bracket. Okay, so what this is going to allow is that when everything's tightened up, when the trailer's jacks start pushing up, it's not going to slide past this point because it's got a detent right here. So I'm not going to bore you right now with bolting it back up, but I'm going to put the 2 bolts back in it, and then we'll switch to the other side. Okay, so now I'm over on the driver's side. I've already got the passenger side installed, and there's been so much going on, I don't remember if we actually filmed the install or not, and it's going to be the same as this side with the exception of this has some extra pieces in it. So I'm going to go ahead and film the install on this side. So come take a look at this. Inside here is different than the other side in the retrospect that this has an electric motor on it with a drive shaft that also goes outside the coach, because this design here, there's a crank that you can put through there if your battery goes dead and crank it manually. So I'm going to have to take this off of this, the electric motor housing and the gearbox or transmission off of the main jack before I pull it out. And so what I'm going to do that is I'm going to take this screw out, which supposed to go to that crossover drive shaft, and then I'm going to pull this spacer out of here. And she's a little stubborn because that shaft broke, so this isn't going to be fun. I may have to cut this piece off. Okay, and then there was 3 screws that I removed that were Phillips head, one here, and one up here, and then that loosened up the main transmission. So what I need to do right now is go get a pry bar and pry this piece off so that I can pull off the transmission. I'll be right back. Okay, so I went and got my pry bar, and this probably all right, so now that that's out, they normally aren't that hard to get off, but because the shaft busted, it caused a problem. Then I need to get this piece out, and it's going to do the same thing. And this is a metal piece, so it's not going to be that easy to do. Sorry, didn't mean to bump the camera. All right, so what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to buff the end of this, because the center shaft now is no longer in the transmission. The gear is no longer plastic, it's now metal, and it won't spread to come out. So I'm going to go get a buffer really quick, and I'm going to buff all the burrs off so it'll slide off easier. Okay. Buff these off, and then I'm going to turn this shaft around with a pair of vice grips because it's too hard to really do by hand. Wow. This thing is frozen. Direct replacement. Gotta love it. all I'm doing, guys, is, and this is because my shaft busted up here, is I'm just getting the burr off of it so that that'll walk off. And I keep bumping into the camera, so excuse me, but this is the transmission assembly that I replaced right here the last time I had landing gear problems, electric jack problems. So now that that's done, now I'm gonna go ahead and let you watch what I didn't have you watch on the other side. I just got to go grab my wrench over here. Don't stop the video, you can edit it. So these two bolts, once again, that need to come off. There's one on the bottom, the 9/16, although I'm using a 15mm ratchet wrench on it because I want it to have a little bit of play on the nut. And what I found out is that these bolts don't come with the new landing gear kit, so make sure you save them and don't destroy them because you're going to need them to put the new landing gear back on. Okay, so now that I got that out and that out, oh, this one's going to want to fall out. The other one I had to pry on. I'll put my wrench in my pocket. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to wear gloves, guys, because that was close to pinching my finger. And here's the second jack. That one I didn't take the pin off of because I figured it wasn't necessary. Here's my son's favorite friend, the spider, that I have to get out of my trailer so he doesn't. There you go. Run away, little guy, run away. All right, so now that that jack is out, now we're going to need to put the new jack in. And the one thing I'm going to have to look at is to make sure that this bar, come out here for a minute. Okay, I've got the door up on my, this is where I keep my wood. It's where the batteries used to be. The batteries in this rig are 2 Caterpillar D-cell batteries, and they're in a special frame that's welded forward to the rear axle, and they're underneath the coach. So the reason why I didn't show you me disconnecting the batteries is you don't get to the batteries unless you got a two 2.25 ton floor jacks, because they literally come down from the top. So the good thing is nobody's ever going to steal them. This piece right here is what I was going to show you. This is where the emergency crank, if your battery goes dead, you can put a crank in there and it'll turn that assembly through that rod that you see sticking out of the transmission. I wanted to make sure that the inside of this, because there's a tube that goes inside this housing, I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to stick out so far that it's going to interfere with the new jack, and it doesn't look like it's going to, so I'm not going to have to remove this. I'm probably just going to find a rubber plug and put a plug in it so that water doesn't get in there. Okay, so the new jack, which is Rat Chia. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bounce it, which will get the leg to come down. And then, go ahead and watch me do this just so that you can see what I'm doing. And then what I'm going to do on this side also is I'm going to put a zip tie. This leg right here, they have all these holes. So I'm going to line up, run it through, and just zip tie it loosely. And now I won't have to bang that again, but it also won't slide out and interfere with putting it in. My son Justin, that's filming us right now, has filmed a lot of my videos. He does a really good job, but he wants to take it up a notch and start editing the videos. This is going to be his first edit, folks. So we'll see how he does. All right, so this ought to be fun. So The other side certainly was. Oh, this one was easier. It's got more room on this side. Okay, so real quick, Justin, let's show them once again. The Bulldog logo is facing me, so it's facing forward. And these detents, they're actually not detents because they're not in, they're sticking out, but basically these, there's going to be one go below this bracket and the bottom one's going to go above the bottom bracket. And so I'm going to slide it in onto that bracket there. And it actually just sits there just like that. This is where your dexterity test comes in, because you basically need to get a bolt in here. Once you get a bolt in there and you get a couple threads started, this won't fall anymore. There's no risk of that falling. So now I'm going to put the bottom one in, make sure that the leg is all the way across into the frame so the bolt will fit. The bolt actually keeps the detent touching. And then I'm going to take my wrench and I'm going to tighten these things down. This is an off-the-record repair. I own the rig. Torque specs are what I want them to be, not what the customer's paying me to put them at. When I do things in my shop, I do them a lot more by the book. So the torque on this is going to be right when you smack your elbow. That actually hurt. All right, so that one's tight. This one down here is really being finicky. You know why? Because I'm using a 15 millimeter and a 9/16. Mathematically, when you're trying to tighten it down, that doesn't work. But if I take a 9/16 and put it on a 9/16, we'll probably have better luck. Hey, no slippy. All right. Now that this one's in, we'll find the electrical wires for this, which are right there. And that's in. Okay, so now I'm back and what do they call it? A quagmire that I got myself into was when we mounted, and I'm saying we because you guys are all with me on this, when we mounted the electric jack on the passenger side, I put the electric jack in so that the motor faced back and the pin would face towards the outside of the trailer, but the foot would still be in line with the trailer, which is the way it should be. When I mounted this one, I put the motor towards the rear, and I didn't notice that the mounting platform for the electric pin, or for the automatic pin, was on the inside, and I'm like, that's not going to fly. I'm too much of a perfectionist to have one pin on this side and one pin on the opposite side. So basically what I did was I unbolted it, I flipped it 180 degrees. So now the electric motor on this side, as you can see up here, is facing forward. The electric motor on the passenger side is facing backwards. Now, the next step that I did was I took a jumper box, which is actually inside this hole. It's just, you know, jump start kit. And I put 12 volts to the power. And on this particular side, I found out that it's negative to positive, positive to negative. Remember, when you're dealing with a 12 volt motor, the motor will run both directions. So if you put positive to positive, negative to negative, it'll run in the direction that it's primarily designed to. But if you flip the polarity, then it'll just run the motor backwards. And that's how these motors work, is when you flip the switch up, it puts power to one wire and ground to the other. And then when you flip the switch, it flips those two wires, so power and ground are reversed. So what I did, because this piece down here wasn't sticking out of the bottom, was I took and I hooked up and these motors are really quiet. So see how it's coming down slowly? I needed this to be underneath here so that I can put this piece together. So once that got down, Now we're going to mount the automatic pin, which I didn't show you on the other side. I'm going to cut my zip tie, and in a perfect world, this will fall down, just like that. So I'm going to let it find a spot. I'm going to put a nut on one side and a nut on the other side. And no, I don't have to be looking at it. I've been doing this long enough to know how to put a nut on blindfolded. Okay, so now I'm going to take my electric, I'm going to lay on my back because it's going to be easier for me. I'm going to tighten this down. Okay. And the vibration rattled my nut off. Those are tight. Now, when you pull this pin, you can lock it out. This will slide up and down, and then when you turn it, you let it in, it'll find a hole. If it hasn't found a hole, it'll find one and it locks in. So now the next step is to put the left foot on, and then we're going to move on to some wiring. Oh, what fun. So here's my hot foot, because now it's been sitting in the sun. Basically all I'm going to do, it would have been nice if I would have gotten the actual pin and not the, it's the pin with the hole. Put the foot pin in here, and then if your foot isn't falling, you pretty much get it right. And there's your foot. So now, I don't want to cut my air hose. That drops all the way down. So the way these are set up are different than my other ones. My other ones didn't have a lock on it. Like if you pull this out and you turn it 45 degrees, there's a detent right here that stops it from going back in. So this can go up and down. So what you can do is you can pull these out, drop them down, and then you turn it, and as the trailer starts moving, the first chance it gets, it'll find a hole. And so, this one's sticking down further than that one, but since we have individual switches when we're wired, I'll deal with it then. So where we're at right now is now I have to do construction. Okay, so what I was getting at is our next step is to do construction, demolition, installation, all kinds of good stuff. So I had my door tied open with a bungee. That's why I wasn't fighting it, because these don't come with the little things that hold them open. So the next step that we need to do is we need to put the new landing gear control on for both electric motors. I had a bungee cord holding the door open, so I've closed that. This was my original switch. That needs to go in place of it. So you see all of that? I have to cut a hole in my trailer big enough for all of that to fit through. What fun. Battery's still disconnected. This switch always sticks. So sometimes it was nice because you could just push it and just wait for it to go where you wanted it and then change it, but it's going bye-bye. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this and then pull the wiring out of the inside, but I got to get tooled up for it because I didn't bring the stuff out here for this yet. Okay, so to take this out, I need that funky little square drive bit. It seems to be so prevalent in RV building. It's like their own special little bolt they like to use. bolt on the table. I'll find my razor blade, and I'm going to see if I can scrape any of this stuff off. My trailer is not aluminum siding, it is fiberglass panel over wood. It's good and bad. Adds a ton of weight to the trailer, but it makes it look really good on the outside when it's clean. Of course, my trailer's so old, the clear coat's pretty much gone off of it. It doesn't look beautiful anymore. Okay, so my next step is going to be to put my bungee back on temporarily so the door is not in my way. This will be going on and coming off quite a few times. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to find the electrical wiring that goes up to that switch, which is all of this right here. And I'm basically going to remove what I don't need. Welcome to the way they build RVs. Okay, so this is the hot line for that switch. So I'm just going to undo the nut for that. And this is the ground wire for that switch. So I'm going to undo the nut for that and take the ground off. I'm just temporarily putting these back on so that they don't go astray. And then these were the two. Remember, I only had one electric motor to drive both, so it only had one positive, one negative. So that's this whole thing right here. And my cameraman's trying to kill himself by tripping on stuff. So this is now what we like to refer to as extra parts. Okay, so now I'm down to just having two ground wires and two hot wires that come from the battery. And what I need to do right now is verify that there's enough room behind this panel to cut a hole large enough for this piece that we're going to be putting in. And then we will be going from there. So I'm going to close this, and I am going to go get a measuring tape, and I'll show you what I'm going to try to do. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to measure the hole I need to cut. It's actually going to be a rectangle, not a hole. So I'm going to go 5 by 2.5 or 5 by 2 1/4. I have a Sharpie right here. So what I'm going to do is my hole that's in the existing is 1 3/4 inches. And I said I wanted to go about 2 1/4, 2 1/2. So I'm going to find the center line. So if I go 2 1/2, it'll be there. So that's 2 1/2 from those two marks. Yep. So there's 2 1/2. Measure twice, cut once. That's what my shop teacher taught me. Shop teacher, I remember. Okay, so 5 inches. Basically what I'm doing, because it doesn't have to be perfect, is I'm just taking the center of the hole and looking to be equal on the outside of each one. I don't want to have it offset too much because I think there's stuff up here on the left rear. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stick my head in this hole, or stick my hand in this hole and go, okay, that right there is a wall. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. So see, I couldn't have brought it all the way over anyway because there's a wall right about here on the inside. So what I need to do now is scientifically draw a stencil . and cut that out of my trailer. All right, so let's cut a hole. You know what? I would recommend putting some tape on the outside of your trailer. I'm gonna have to buff that off. Stand by. All right, so one of the things I messed up on was, and I'm glad this was mine and not a customer's car, although I think I could have buffed it out anyway, is that my saw left scuff marks in the clear coat. It didn't go into my wood, but it definitely left marks. So I'll have to buff that when I'm done. So what I'm doing is I'm putting tape down so that when this chatters, it doesn't kill it. Well, the good part is I don't have to worry about pulling that piece of wood out because it's down in here now. It's not metal, so it won't rattle. Stay with me, people. I know it's boring. I don't know about you guys, but that looks pretty good. I like that. All right, so I won't be cutting anymore, at least not with this. So I'm going to take this stuff back off. Okay, we want this weatherproof. So this is RV putty that you can buy from any of your local RV stores. And what this basically does is gives you a sealing point for your stuff that you bolt into your trailer. And it's not adhesive, but it is kind of sticky because it is a sealant. And as you tighten your part down, it will smash out of the crack. And it will basically give you a fairly decent watertight seal. This isn't rocket science. It's actually pretty easy. Just make sure that you get it good tight seal. And then as we put this in and we bolt it down, this stuff will smash out around the cracks. And then when it's done, you can just take a little razor blade, trim it, and you're good. Okay, so gonna put that in there. Put that right there. Make sure that that's visually level. And then once I make sure it's visually level, I need that part. What are you laughing at? All right. You can actually let this stuff sit for a while and then trim it. Now the only thing I have to deal with is I have to deal, see where I left my scuff marks? I have to deal with that. That's something I have to go in and correct. I'll buff it with a buffer the best I can. This trailer's a 2004. I don't think I'm going to lose any sleep over it having a couple scratches in it. And now that that's done, I'm going to tie my door back open. And now we're going to get to the the fun stuff, which is the electrical wiring. And so now is when we are going to deal with this thing, which is our Bulldog RV landing gear wiring schematic. And if you're doing the high-speed drive, it's wired differently than if you're doing the high torque drive. And the reason for that is because when you change which hole your drive is located in, when you move the motor, the gear will spin one way on the high drive, it'll spin the other way on the low drive, because remember, there's two different gears in there. So that's the reason why the wiring's different. So on the high torque drive, you're black wire to red wire to black wire on the motor, on the driver's side, and you're blue to red, yellow to black. Now I'm going to test these. The main thing is positive I need to put a positive to both of these pink wires and a negative to both of the black wires. And that's the first thing I'm going to do right now is, let's see. The interesting thing is this only has one black wire coming out of it. I'm going to double check that here real quick. I believe they're referring to the white wires. Yep, and if I would have looked with my glasses, it's not black wires, it's white wires. So there's two white wires that come out. They're going to go to ground, and then the pink ones are going to be hot. The others are going to go directly to the drives. Okay, so now I'm working on the electrical wiring after I've got my control panel put in. Obviously, landing gear control is facing the right way, so I didn't put it in upside down. Ha ha ha. Okay, so the first thing on the book that we're looking at is our battery needs to go to our control panel. There's two pink wires. There's a positive pink and a positive pink for both switches. They have to go to the positive on the battery, which are these two red wires. So I've already got these with what's called a twist nut on there. That's what came in the rig. That's what I'm gonna put back in there on these particular parts. Now the next part is, even though they show it as a black dotted line, they're actually two white wires. Those two white wires are both going to go to ground. So this is the black ground wires right here that come up from the battery with the twist nut. And I'm going to strip these back just a little bit further so that I can get the twist nuts on easier. I'll put these side by side, put this side by side, and basically just going to twist all this stuff together. Make it a big jumble of junk. Grab my twist nut and put the twist nut on there, and basically it's just like putting a nut on a bolt. You're just going to twist it until it gets nice and tight, and then check and make sure it doesn't pull off. Twist it again, check and make sure it doesn't pull off. Okay, so now our hot and our ground are connected. And the only wires we have now, we're getting down to the brass tacks, guys, because now all we got to do is wire the actual switch. Now, I'm going to wire this side first so that I can check and make sure it goes in the right direction. So, according to the chart, the red wire from this motor on the driver's side, which is where we're at, is going to go to the black wire. And so basically red to black, red to black. So for right now, what we're going to do, so I'm not going to use these. They can go bye-bye. See ya. Strip this wire back. Strip this wire back. Okay, so now, I already forgot the colors. We're going to be using red and black. So the red and black to red and black. That explains why the wires for the switch to the other side are a larger diameter wire, because you need more amperage to go a longer distance. So they're having you use a thicker wire. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily twist the red and black wires together. And I am going to go turn my battery on. In your particular case, if you don't have a disconnect switch, you're going to reconnect your batteries. When you go to reconnect them, make sure you don't see a big spark. That's not the sign you want to see. Okay, so now that I've got it hooked up the way the book says, if I hit extension, this should come down. It's coming down. If I hit retract, it should go up. All right, so this side is successful. So we got it right, even though the motor is facing backwards, everything is working in the proper configuration. So now all I have to do is connect these two to the other side via the extension wires that I went out to the hardware store to purchase. And it will be yellow to black and then blue to red. So yellow and black, that's a bumblebee color. That would be easy for me to remember. So at this point, you've already seen me hook this up. Hooking these two wires up is not rocket science. Go by the diagram. On my particular one, like I said, yellow to black and then blue to red. So I'm going to go ahead and connect these. I'm going to run two wires across, connected to the motor on the other side, and then we'll come back and we'll test the system together. I'll put blocks underneath it and we'll actually see if it'll actually lift this sucker up off the ground. So here we go. All right, guys, I've enjoyed spending a Sunday with you shooting this video. The actual overall install has been a success. Next one I do will be way faster, mainly because I won't be shooting a video on it. So everything's together, all the wiring's the way we discussed it. Both jacks are working. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to test the system. So I'm going to push down on both of these. Actually, I'm going to do one at a time. I'm going to do the passenger side first. Okay, so it's under load. This is the driver's side. I'll get it under load. And then I'm going to hit them both together. Actually working. If you notice right here on my stabilizer, it came up. I probably shouldn't put my finger in there. It's not the smartest thing in the world to do. This was touching this and tightened down onto it. And this is my stabilizer. This keeps the trailer from moving around a lot when I'm sleeping in my upper bunk. When people walk around in the back, it just kind of keeps the front stabilized, is all it is. Okay, so we are officially sitting down on top of this. Now I'm going to tell you my reviews right now on this, the stuff that I like and I don't like. I like the individual electric motors because when I'm in the desert, if I'm just an inch off, instead of having to back up and put more blocks down, now I'm just going to be able to just run one jack down a little bit more and then just run my screw jacks down in the back and level the thing out. So I like that. The control panel pretty nice. Like I showed you guys before, remember I had a big old huge scratch over here from the saw. I buffed it with wax buffing compound and it came right out just like I knew it would. So the switches are nice. They have breakers built into them, so I didn't have to fuse the system because it's already done here. The things I don't like is to be able to switch from the low speed to the high speed drive. At least in my particular fifth wheel, it's going to be easier just to pull the entire stand back out, or at least drop it down so that you can get to it. The electric motor sticks up so high inside the rig that if one of those motors fails, it's going to be easier for me to take those two main bolts out and drop the leg completely down with the stand underneath it again. So those motors are not going to be as easy to change. With my old one, every time I had a problem with the motor or the transmission, it was fixable right here. I mean, you just put the stands down and you were done. But the theory is if these things are built as quality as everybody says they are, I shouldn't have a problem with that. So once again, this is Ron, and I own Mobile Fix Automotive. And for those of you that have never actually seen my mobile rig, if my filmer wants to turn around, you guys will finally get to see a glimpse of my service truck. That's the one that I take out to my fleet accounts. I don't run a lot of residential calls in it anymore because it's too expensive to charge to go out and do, but it's basically a shop on wheels. So hopefully this helps you out on the Bulldog fifth wheel landing gear set, and I think it's similar for pretty much most of the rigs, but since everybody that had the install videos were on trailers where they were on the outside, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of help putting them on the inside. Really wasn't that bad. I think actual install time for somebody that wasn't spending time shooting a video, probably about 2 hours. Cutting the hole was probably the scariest part because, you know, if you screw up on that, the only way to fix it is to repanel the front of the trailer. But I was pretty confident I had that one down straight. So we'll see you on the next video, and just remember, if you want to watch this over and over again, you have a fast forward and a rewind button. You don't have to go through all the boring steps, all right? See you guys on the next video.